All right. Wow. Let's see.
I know. Isn't that awesome?
Wow, we have 85 folks coming in. It is amazing. Apparently, you say Excel and everybody jumps in.
It's an everyday app.
I know. Now we know the secret button. I can. Well, from your history lesson here, have you ever, if you go back and you hear about all the amazing things in computers and back in the 80s and 90s, they always talk about the concept of a sheet. Excel
Mhm.
being like the first killer app. Like it was the one that like really brought a lot of people, like normal business users, into computers.
I did use Lotus 123 prior to
Yeah.
Excel.
Right. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that general concept of a application that allows you to calculate things and keep up with the numbers and stuff like that was like the beginning. It was the beginning.
And
All
it's
right. Are we ready?
unbelievable how it's changed over the past even 10 years.
Oh yeah. I'm like I said before, being a technical person over the years, I consistently get involved in some sort of thing I need to do. And I think with enough time and effort, I don't think there's been many times where I couldn't figure out how to do something in Excel if I just use my Google skills, well enough.
You
So
just said a G word.
sorry.
I'll
My,
show you some examples of using help today.
yeah, there you go.
So it
My
looks
son.
like we have quite a few people already connected.
We do almost 100.
Yeah.
All right. Just let me know when you want to wait a few minutes or just go ahead and get started.
Actually, why don't we go ahead because we've got a lot to talk about in our hour. So
Okay.
I'm
Good.
sure some people will still be trickling in, but
Yeah. All right. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Jason Graff. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the IT company. So thank you for coming. Jolynn is going to spend an hour with us, giving us great information just related to an application that I think most of us all use. That's why we've got almost 100 people here, right now to participate. But some housekeeping things. If you have any questions, please use the Zoom chat feature, and we'll engage with those as we can. We'll have some time at the end for Q&A, and we are recording this so that if you need to follow up and do this in the future. But yeah, just a plug for, I think you guys are here for a reason, because you understand how critical Excel as an application can be. Jolene and I were just reminiscing about, I can remember years ago, like the first killer app being kind of Excel and how far it's
right.
come. And now with, all the different things you can do, it's just a really, really good skill to learn. And I even told her, I said, I've used Excel a lot, but I can guarantee in the next hour, I will learn many things that I don't know. So these types of opportunities are great. So Jolene, please take it away.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jason. So welcome everybody to our session today on Excel. I'm going to open up a practice file to use during our session. And if you have already downloaded the handout, either keeping it as a PDF or if you printed it off, you can use that to follow along, or of course you can use that for after we get done with our session here today. But what I wanted to start with today, which I usually do when we're starting with kind of a fundamentals class with Excel, is I want to explain what everything is on the screen. A lot of times, if we are self-taught, we don't really understand the benefits and the features and what things are actually named. And Jason was just talking about going to that G word to get help. If you know what Microsoft calls something, it's easier to actually get help on it if you use the correct name. And I know that when we use applications, we sometimes call things what we want to call them. But of course, Microsoft does have a name for everything. So I'll go through that with you here, getting started.
Hey,
So,
Jolene,
yes.
real quick before we have one user that's got their hand raised. Raymond, did you have a question before we got started?
Yeah.
Or maybe an inadvertent hand raise?
Raymond, did you have a question for us?
Hello.
Hi.
I am working on my sound. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. I'm trying
Yes,
to
we
get my
can.
sound together with my IT guy. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No
That's all right.
problem. Just let us know if you need anything. All right. So just so everybody knows, I'm using Excel 365 and I'm in the desktop app. The desktop app is a great tool to be using because it gives you access to absolutely every feature within Excel. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but Excel is a very powerful program. As Jason and I were kind of reminiscing on, how it's changed and the great benefits that we have, it's amazing what this program does. It's a lot more than just adding and subtracting information. It does a lot more than that. Today will be more of the let's get started and understand some fundamentals about the program, which, as I said, I'll describe what you see on your screen starting at the top left. At the top left is actually called the Quick Access Toolbar. It is customizable. On page 1, you have some instructions on doing that. I won't cover that with you here today, but just so you're aware of the fact that it is customizable. You'll notice that I have my auto save turned on. The auto save is turned on automatically if your file is being saved to a cloud. So if you're using SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, or OneDrive, then you will have the auto save by default. Otherwise, it's grayed out. You can't actually use it if you're saving to a network drive or your C drive. You will also, of course, get your undo and your redo buttons. First keyboard shortcut of the session today, Control Z is one of the most common keyboard shortcuts in Excel, and that's how we undo something. So by default, you will have the save choices, you will have your undo and your redo. I have actually customized my quick access because I use a strike through feature very often. So I have actually added that to my quick access toolbar. To the right of that, you're going to see the name of your file. To the right of that, you're going to see the search bar, which the search allows you to search for a command or additional help. But I'll get to more options for help here as we go along. Of course, at the top right, you're going to get your profile of who you're logged in as on the computer, your typical Windows minimize, maximize, and restore. But then you're going to find the ribbon. Ribbon is customizable as well, more for an advanced session, but the way that the ribbon is actually laid out is actually very smart. They have the names of the tabs going across the top, which totally makes sense on what's inside each of the tabs. But if you look at the bottom of the ribbon, I'm on the Home tab, and on the bottom of the ribbon, you're going to see different group names. So what Microsoft did was they grouped all the commands that are related to each other in a group. So throughout the session, when I want to go to a specific location on the ribbon, I'll say the name of the tab, then the name of the group. Then if you hesitate on the names of the commands on the ribbon, if you're not familiar with something, it will give you a screen tip giving you the name of what the command is. Some of the commands that you hesitate on are also going to give you tell me more. This is a way to get help on that specific command. If I go to merge and center as an example, if I click on tell me more, what that's going to do is open up the help on the right-hand side, allowing me to have access to that command and how it works and see examples and different things like that. So that's a great way to get help directly from the ribbon. But some of the commands are going to have a keyboard shortcut. There are some standard keyboard shortcuts that everybody should have memorized. They're universal shortcuts, meaning they're available everywhere in all programs. Control B, Control I for italics, Control U for underline, Control S for save. There's a lot of standard universal shortcuts that we all should know. So those are your typical ones, but also if you do any cut, copying, and pasting, if you look at the clipboard group, we have our cut command, which is Control X, kind of like the scissors scenario. We have Control C, of course, for copy, and Control V for paste. So the reason I'm mentioning these, I started with computers before the mouse came out, so that tells you how old I am. But really, the reason behind it is you save time by doing keyboard shortcuts. Because if you already have your hands on your keyboard, why would you want to leave your keyboard, grab your mouse and click on something and come straight back to your keyboard? It's actually more efficient to use shortcuts. So definitely want to be checking out some shortcuts. But let me continue with the ribbon for a minute. When you look at the bottom of the ribbon where you see the names of the groups, some of the groups, not all of them, but some of them are going to have this little it's a little box with an arrow at the bottom right corner. You may have used that here in Excel before. It's actually called the dialog box launcher. That's on page 2 of your handout. But it's important to remember, what does it do and why is it there? If the group you're looking at has a dialog box launcher, that means if you click on it, it's going to give you more choices based on that group. So the format cells is very, very common, and I'm going to assume that a lot of you have probably checked that out before. So just so you know, that has a name, dialog box launcher, but the reason some of the groups don't have it is because we can already see all the commands for that specific group. Continuing right underneath the ribbon, on the left-hand side, you're going to see the name box. The name box always gives you the name of your active cell. I happen to be on cell A1, so my name box says A1. But that name box is a lot more than just telling you the name of the cell. I'm not sure if you're using this feature yet. It's a little bit more of an advanced feature, but the name box is where we can name a cell and use it as an absolute reference. We can navigate through it. We can use it in scenarios, all kinds of features. So what you see is not always just what you get. There's a lot more to that. But we'll save that for another session for now. To the right of that is the X, the check mark, and the FX. The FX is probably the most common. And to be honest, I never use the other two icons, and I'll explain why here in a second. But the FX is called insert function. If you hesitate your mouse on it, it will give you that screen tip. But it is one way to be able to help you create a formula. We're going to be getting into formulas in a minute, so I'll kind of table that discussion. We'll come back and talk about that. And by the way, they call this the formula icons area. A lot of people think the whole bar is the actual formula bar, but it's not. It's the name box, the formula icons, then you're going to see the actual formula. Excuse me. The formula bar. The formula bar will give you the contents of whatever is in your cell. If it's a formula, you'll see the answer by default on the cell. You'll see the formula in the formula bar. And by the way, just so everybody knows, when I say the word default, that means this is the way it comes, but it can be changed. Meaning that when we create a formula, if we want to actually see the formula in the cell, we're capable of doing that. That is a feature we can do. I use that a lot with troubleshooting and trying to figure out someone's spreadsheet. But anyway, underneath that, let's continue down the window. Underneath that, you're going to see your column letters. I'm not sure if you've ever been to the end of the column letters, but it starts with letter A, it double letters and triple letters all the way over to XFD. So that's over 16,000 columns across. By the way, if I'm on A1 and I do control right arrow, it's going to jump me to XFD because I had no other text in that row. So now I'm to the very last column of the worksheet. If you look at the left-hand side, you're going to see that you have row numbers. It goes from row 1 through 1,048,576 rows. So if I'm on XFD1, that cell, if I do control down arrow, that's going to take me to the very bottom of my worksheet, the very last cell. I can't go down, can't go right. I am at the end. XFD 1,048,576. Crazy how big each sheet is. They're the same size. But I want to get back to column A. I'm going to do a keyboard shortcut to do that. If I want to stay in the row that I'm in, get back to column A, I could actually press my home key. My home key on my keyboard is the navigation option to always jump directly to column A. Control home always takes you to A1, or in other programs like the internet, Microsoft Word, it's going to take you to the top left of whatever you are actively in. Just so you know, it's a universal shortcut. Control home is very commonly used here in Excel. But besides all these columns and all these rows, when we talk about an actual cell, so if I go to G4, that means I'm in column G, row 4. And you can see that when I'm on my cell, I actually have a border around the outside edge of my cell. And G is emphasized, and so is row 4. And we can, of course, look at the name box to know the active cell we are on. It's always important to understand which cell you're on, because if I'm on G4 and there's already text there, but I really wasn't paying attention to what was on my cell right now, and if I started typing, it would if I pressed enter or control enter, it would automatically replace what was there. But I can cancel what I was starting to type and put back what was there by pressing my escape key on my keyboard, or I could go to my formula icons and click on the red X. To be honest, I never do that. I press my escape key, but if I click on that red X or escape, it's going to put back what I had there. So kind of an important thing to pay attention to what cell you are actively on. And then let's jump down towards the bottom of the screen. You will see different sheet tabs. We'll get into a little bit more on sheet tabs, but this particular workbook has quite a few different sheets. And I'm actually going to purposely hide some of my sheets here. As you can see, I can't see all of my sheets right now because I moved my scroll bar over. But we can navigate our sheets multiple ways. If I can't see all my sheets, I know that I have more because I will have an arrow pointing to the right and or left that I can use to scroll through the names of my sheets. But if I have additional sheets that I can't see to the left of me or to the right of me, I will see 3 dots. Those 3 dots help you to know there's more sheets in that direction. So I have 3 dots on the right and 3 dots on the left. If I click the dots, it physically navigates me in that direction. By the way, you can have as many sheets as you want within your workbook. It's really limited to the resources on your computer. You can name the sheets up to 31 characters long using uppercase, lowercase, etc., spaces. It's very important to name your sheets because when you do formulas and use other features, the name of the sheet will show up. So if you're going across multiple sheets, it will show the name of the sheet. So you want to definitely name it. But I want to jump down to the very bottom of the screen. Sorry, I'm battling a head cold. At the very bottom of the screen is actually called the status bar. At the bottom left of the status bar, it says the word ready. You may or may not have noticed that, but it means something. It can change from the word ready to enter or edit. Sorry. Ready means that you are ready to perform all actions. So all the commands on the computer, on the ribbon, will be available. But if I'm on a cell, a blank cell, and I just start typing, it moves me to enter mode. So on the bottom left, it says the word enter. If I look at the ribbon, a lot of my commands are grayed out. Sorry. Because I can't use them when I am in enter mode, just so you're aware. Even if so I'm going to control enter, which by the way, when I'm typing text, if I press enter, which is your default usually of how you type something in and you move off the cell, you press enter to complete it. But what if I don't want to move? I want to complete it, but I don't want to move off the cell. You can either go to the formula icons and click on the green check mark or control enter. I'm going to do control enter to stay on the cell. It's more efficient that way than moving down and then having to move back up. But if I'm on a cell and I have data on there, if I click in the formula bar or double click on the cell, I'm going to be in edit mode. The bottom left of my status bar now says edit. If I look at the ribbon, most of my commands are grayed out because I can't use them when I am in edit mode. So we want to be in ready mode to perform all actions, just so you're aware. So just so you know, that has a purpose at the bottom left. The status bar at the bottom, also on the right-hand side, is going to include 3 icons, excuse me, which are view icons, ways to change the way you're looking at your spreadsheet. We won't worry about those today, but it also is going to give you the zoom slider. You can zoom in and zoom out with the plus and the minus sign. Definitely, I'm sure you've probably used that. If not, you should check it out. But the status bar is customizable. It will automatically display different things depending on what you're doing. As a matter of fact, if I select a few cells, it automatically is calculating the cells that I just selected. I can see down on my status bar, I'm showing an average, a count, a numerical count, a min, a max, and a sum. So it's a built-in calculator. That's actually called auto calculate. But if I go to my status bar and do a right click, I'm going to get a pop-up menu showing me all the commands that are currently turned on. They have a check mark in front of them. Some of these, you may not even notice that they show up at the bottom of the screen, but I want to point out one that is relatively new. It's actually called sheet number. One of the options is displaying the sheet tab number down in the status bar. So if I click that right now at my bottom left, it says sheet 1 of 11. So I have 11 total sheets and I'm on sheet 1. Just so you can see that you could do that if you wanted to. I'm going to turn it off again because I don't necessarily need it right now. But just so you're aware, the status bar is customizable in all of your programs just by right-clicking on it. But let's get into a few other things related to using Excel. So we talked about the ribbon, the dialog box launcher. I'm going to go on page 2. I'm going to go to the file menu at the top left. At the top left, when you click on File, the left-hand side is the navigation pane. Whatever you click on there is going to change what you see on the right. One of them I'm going to point out is the Info category. The Info category has a lot of tools on the right-hand side. On the way right, way over here, you're going to see the properties of a file. I'm not sure if you use the properties, if you modify them at all. I'm really big into modifying them because I create a lot of templates and do a lot of work for other organizations. So I do modify it. But just so you know, this is where you could do that. Also, in the middle of the window, you have some protection options, which are also available on the Review tab. You also have Check for Issues, which can inspect your workbook. We have version history. So if you are saved to a cloud, it automatically keeps track of your version history. I don't have to go to SharePoint or wherever to do it. I can actually do that right here within the document. So just so you can see, every time you click on something from the left, it's going to change what you're seeing on the right. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the workbook. I'm going to click the back arrow and I'm back into the file again. Lots of things in that file tab. So zooming and your view icons are located on page 3 of your handout if you want to read through that. But also on page 3, an important part of using Excel is understanding your mouse shape. When you move your mouse around, the shape of your mouse changes, and it's important to understand those. When you are up on the ribbon, you get your normal mouse pointer, but if I'm on a letter for any of my column letters, I'm going to get a down arrow. If I click, it's going to automatically select that column. Or if I click and drag, I can select multiple columns. If I go to a row number, it will give me an arrow pointing to the right where I could select a single row or click and drag to select multiples. Of course, there's reasons we do that because we need to change the height, we need to change the width, we want to insert, we want to delete, whatever the case might be. But also mouse shapes that I want to mention is whatever your active cell is, you have several different shapes on that active cell. The thick T shape, that thick plus kind of shape, that is actually called select. When your mouse is in that shape, you can click and drag to select cells. But if you put your mouse on the outside edge, you're going to get the move handle. The move handle, which includes 4 arrows and the mouse arrow, would allow you to click and drag and physically move the data in that cell to a different location. So you want to make sure you don't have that shape when you click and drag. Now we also, of course, have, if you put your mouse in between column letters or row numbers, you're going to get a bar with arrows. That will allow you to adjust the width or the height of the row, the width of the column or the height of the row. Double clicking automatically will adjust. Clicking and dragging will manually allow you to adjust. So always watch your mouse shape. There's an important mouse shape that I want to mention. When it comes to doing data entry, I'm just going to go to a blank cell. And let's say that I type in today's date. So it's 1/24/24, and I'm going to do Control Enter, although I don't necessarily need to. At the bottom right of your active cell, you will see a little square. When you hesitate your mouse on that square, you're going to get a T shape. That is actually called fill, F-I-L-L, and we can use it to fill in information. It also does copying, so it will copy or fill in data. So if I'm on today's date or any date, if I click and drag down or across, left or right across, it's going to automatically assume that I want to go from the 24th to the 25th to the 26th, etc. But what if that's not what I wanted? At the bottom of this, you're going to see an icon. And if an icon just shows up here in Excel, it's there for a reason. So you always want to click on it to see what it's there for. If you click on the autofill, it's going to give you copy cells. So if you wanted it to be 1/24/24 all the way down, you could copy it. Or what if I wanted it to just be weekdays? I don't want weekends. I can actually click fill weekdays and it's going to get rid of the weekends. So if an icon appears at any time, click on it. There's a reason it's there. Also, if I want to fill in days of the week, months, quarters, those are called a custom list in Excel. They will automatically fill in as well. Today is Wednesday, so if I type in Wednesday, that's how I always say it, and I use my fill handle, it's going to automatically fill in the days of the week. But once again, I got that icon at the bottom. If I don't want weekends, I could click on that drop down and say fill weekdays, and it's going to skip the weekends. So take advantage of that fill handle. It allows you to copy and or fill things in. Now, I mentioned that custom list, by the way. You can create your own custom lists way beyond the scope of our class today, but just so you're aware of that. And then also on page 3, it talks about navigating your worksheet. Your enter key, of course, moves you down one. Your tab key moves you to the right. Shift tab moves you to the left. You have your arrow keys you can do up, down, left, and right. The control home, as I mentioned, the home key, lots of ways to navigate. But I want to talk about working with ranges. Going to page 4, when you have a bunch of data, you're going to want to select them to format them and do other things. So if I want to select A1 down through A15, I just click and drag this to select it. But what if I want to select A1 through Jeepers Creepers, there it goes. My mouse just kind of sometimes takes over and I'm selecting more than I want. So I want to show you some ways to control what it is that you're selecting. If I want to select A1 through G9, I could click on the top left cell, use my shift key and click on the bottom right cell, and it will select everything in between. Or if I want to select random cells, I could select the first range, hold my control key down and select the second range, or continue to select by holding my control key down. So the control key allows you to control what you select. The shift key goes from one place through another. I use those a lot in Outlook to select emails and move them or delete them and things like that. Those are universal. You can use those anywhere. So shift and control are important features. But what if I wanted to select the range of cells of A4 through G9? That is connected to each other. There's no separate columns or rows of information there. If I click on any cell within that range, I can select it all by doing a keyboard shortcut, Control A. Control A will select that area. But if I'm on a blank cell and I do Control A, it will select all cells. Let me show you another example of that. I'm going to go to this worksheet called subtotal. And just so you can see, it goes through 1,465 rows and column K. I'm going to jump back up to the top. If I want to select that entire range, I click on a cell in the range, Control A. I have seen so many people try and do the click and drag to select. You know, what if you had 10,000 rows of information and 400 columns? That's going to take you a while, and it probably is going to select more than you wanted. Control A, one of my favorite things to do with a range of data. But I'm going to jump back here to totals. I could spend all day just talking about shortcuts and kind of some efficiencies of using the program, but we'll hold off on some of that for right now. By the way, your shift and your control keys are explained at the bottom or at the top of page 5. When it comes to entering data, that's included on that same page. We were just kind of talking about that, so I won't go through that with you. But the fill options that I was mentioning with your fill handle, that is also at the top of page 6. But if I'm on text and I use my fill handle and click and drag down, it's going to assume that I automatically want to copy that data. Otherwise, if it's a custom list, it will fill in the custom list. Or if it's a formula, it will copy the formula as well. And speaking of formulas, in your handout on page 6, it talks about performing calculations on data. So typically we use operators to do calculations. We use the plus, the minus, the asterisk, the slash for divide. Those, I'm hoping you have already used some of those before. Just a demonstration of those. If I wanted to add these numbers together for each of these quarters in this worksheet, and I want the answer on C9, like for all of the quarter 1, I could simply start with an equal because every formula starts with an equal. And I could say I want to take this cell plus this cell plus this cell plus this cell and Control Enter, and it will give me the answer with the formula in the formula bar. But if I have 100 numbers that I want to add together, I'm never going to do it that way. Even in a short list like 4 numbers, I'm still not going to probably do it that way. I would most likely want to use what is called a function. If you look at your formulas tab of the ribbon, this is going to include the function library group. Built into Excel 365 are over 460 different functions. Functions are a hidden code to the computer to let it know what type of a formula you want to do. So we don't just do add, subtract, multiply, and divide, although those are very common. We can be using, and everything is separated into categories, by the way. So we have our financial, logical, text, date and time, lookup and reference, math and trig, and we have our more functions where you'll find statistical, engineering, etc. The most common function in Excel is sum. So we can actually use an icon called auto sum to add together a range or of column of numbers or a row of numbers. So I could be on D9, and instead of doing this cell plus this cell plus this cell, I can simply click on the Greek E, which is located on the Home tab in the Editing group or here on the Formulas tab. If I click the auto sum, it's going to look up, and if it sees a set of numbers, it's going to assume that's what I want to add together. If that's what I want, Control Enter, and I'm done. So the auto sum is very smart on recognizing what it is we want to do. Now, I could do the same thing for E and F, but if I know I want the same exact formula as column D to go to E and F, I could just simply use my fill handle and copy that formula across. It's smart enough to switch to the other columns. But in column G, I wouldn't be able to just do the auto sum and have it give me the correct range of cells for each of the rows because we have this employee ID number. So let me give you a shortcut in this circumstance. I could actually I could create the formulas all at one time in column G by selecting C5 through G8. If I select the numbers, the cells that have the numbers that I want to add together, plus the blank cells where I want the answers to go, I can click the auto sum and it will add together each of those numbers going across each row that I had selected. But what you're going to see is in column G, it gave me a bunch of green triangles on each of these cells. And I got an icon, which of course I need to go to. If I click on that icon, it's going to tell me that I omitted adjacent cells, which means there were still numbers in that row that I didn't add together. So it's kind of letting you know that you might have forgot something, but I meant to do that. So if I want to get rid of those green triangles, which are non-printing characters, you can actually click ignore error and it will get rid of those green triangles. They're just there to help you to know that, hey, wait a second, you may have forgotten something, just so you're aware it does that. But I want to talk just a little bit more on this auto sum. I'm going to go over to the references worksheet. And we don't have an employee ID number here, but I have row 9 where I want to add together my quarter 1 through quarter 4. I'm not going to do 1 and then copy it. To be honest, how I would do it is select the blank cells in row 9 where I want to add together each quarter. Then I'm going to click on the auto sum and I'm done, because it's smart enough to know that I wanted to add together each separate column. So it adjusts accordingly. I can also do that same thing in column F. I can select F5 through F8, click the auto sum, and it's going to automatically add the individual columns going across. So it's pretty smart that way. So let the computer do the work. We work way too hard with our formulas sometimes. And then I'm just going to go to B12, and I'm going to create a formula that's going to add together B9 plus C9 and multiply it by 2. If you remember from math class, the order of operations sometimes needs to be followed, depending on what you really want for the answer to your formula. So if I go to B12 and I do equal to start my formula, and I do B9 plus C9 asterisk 2, I can use a combination of cell references and actual numbers in any formula. But this is going to give me a different answer, because if you look in your handout also on page 7, it talks about your order of operations, otherwise known as order of precedence, where we have to use the order depending on how you want the answer to come out, because it does anything in parens first, then exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. So if I leave it the way that it is right now, it's going to automatically multiply, then add. If I wanted to add these two together first, then multiply the whole thing by 2, I need to put B9 plus C9 in parens. Then it's going to add these first, then multiply the answer by 2. So depending on what you want for your outcome, you have to type it in correctly. So Excel is very specific with that. So make sure that you enter that in correctly. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally was the saying I was taught. But those categories for all those different functions is listed on page 8 of your handout. Now, I'm going to do one more formula for you. In column G, I want to create a formula that's going to give me the commission for each of the employees. And I want the answer for the first person on G5. So basically, I want to do equal F5, which is their total sales, multiplied by G2. If I do that and control enter, it's going to automatically give me 4% of their total. So I can see what the commission would be. But if I copy that formula down for the other employees, it's going to copy it exactly the way that I just told it to, which is not correct. So on G6, it's trying to multiply by nothing, by G3, and it's not using the 4% that I want it to use. I'm getting a hashtag value error because it's trying to multiply by text. And then this is actually giving me hashtags because I can't see the width of the column. The number was being hidden. Column wasn't wide enough. It's trying to multiply by the commission of Kendra James. So this is not correct. So what we want to do when we create a formula like this is we have two choices. we could use dollar signs to lock down the cell that we want to be referencing. So G2, if I wanted to always say G2 when I copy this down, I technically, in the first formula, I could put a dollar sign in front of the G and a dollar sign in front of the 2. That is called an absolute reference, where the dollar signs say to always refer to this column, always refer to this row, or in this case, it would be the intersection, the actual cell. By the way, the keyboard shortcut is going to be your function key F4. If I'm behind the cell that I want to put the dollar signs on, it will automatically put the dollar signs in front of the G and the 2. It's going to give you the same answer. The only reason you would ever need to do that is if you want to copy the formula and keep it as being G2 or whatever your cell happens to be. If I recopy this, it will give you the correct answers, because every single one of these will have the dollar sign G, dollar sign 2, just so you're aware that it does that. But also in your handout on page 9, it's talking about changing your workbook appearance. In this particular worksheet, we have a list of all these different employees. Not sure if you're aware of this, but what if I wanted to insert a new employee? I want to take Kendra James and move everybody down one and put in a new employee. If I right click on row number 5, I can left click on insert. That's going to move everything down one row. But I got a little paintbrush icon. And remember, anytime that you get an icon, it's there for a reason. So if I click on it, what it is doing by default is copying the formatting from the row above us. We want the formatting from the row below us because we want it to match the other employees, not the formatting from the headings in row 4. So from this dropdown, I can choose format same as below. So if I come in and enter in a name, I put in some numbers, it's going to automatically then format it the same as the rest of the employees. So take advantage of the icons that show up. But what you're going to see that it did not do is it did not give me the formulas over in columns F and G. But I can copy those formulas, and I can do them both at the same time by selecting F6 through G6, grabbing the fill handle and dragging it up. So formulas can be copied down, up, left, right, whatever you need. And if you look at row 10, you can see that these totals have those green triangles, which is telling you something. And if I go to B10, I can see that the formula is not including the new row. It goes from row 6 through row 9. Easy way to fix it, auto sum. So just so you can see, those triangles are there to help you. It's helping you to recognize that something is wrong. So if you're going to be inserting new columns or rows into your data, pay attention to what doesn't happen correctly. Take advantage of that copy or that formatting paintbrush that you get. So if you want to copy the formatting from a different location, top or bottom, left or right, if you insert a column, let the computer do that work instead of you doing it. Okay. And then also going over to page 10, it talks about hiding rows and columns. Earlier, I talked about the fact that we can adjust column widths by putting our mouse in between a column. We could then click and drag. And by the way, you're to the right of the column you want to adjust. You can manually adjust or double click to have it automatically adjust. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because what if I don't want to see, or I don't want other people to see, column G? If I right click on the letter G, I can left click on hide. And if I print or I protect this worksheet and share it with others, they're not going to be able to see that or be able to unhide it. But what it does by default is it just changes it to be a 0 width. If you want to bring that column back, you could select the surrounding columns. So in this case, it would be F and H. I could right click and I could left click on unhide to bring it back. But I'm going to undo that. I'm going to Control Z and undo that. Because if you look in between my columns H and F, there's a little bar there. And if I hesitate my mouse on it, it's actually showing me that there's a hidden column there. And if I double click, it will make it as wide as the widest column or the data, or I could have clicked and dragged to bring it back out because it was really just a 0 width. Just so you're aware of the fact that you could do that. And then also what you're seeing on page 10 is it's talking about using cell styles. I'm going to go back to the totals worksheet for a second. And in row 4, I would want to make all these headings to be bold. I would probably want to underline the, put a border on the underline or, do different formatting to make those headings stand out. Personally, I don't go to the Home tab and use individual commands from the font group, the alignment group, the number group, etc. What I personally do is go to the styles group. From the styles group, you can click cell styles, and these are built-in style formatting, where we have these category here of titles and headings, where we could actually be using heading 1, 2, or 3. So if I want heading 2, I click on it, and it's automatically changed this to be Calibri size 13 bold, and it gave me a bottom border going across those cells, and it's a thicker border, and it's blue. How many clicks would that have taken me if I would have manually done that myself? So it's more efficient to use the cell styles. Another example would be row 9. If I select the cells in row 9, this is your typical totals row. We format that usually a certain way, but we have it built in, the cell styles. If I go back to cell styles again, on the right-hand side, I can click total. What that will do by default is give us Calibri size 11 bold, and it gave us a single blue border going across the top and a double bottom border going across the bottom of all those cells. So with just those two little things, this is more legible than it was at the beginning, and I only clicked twice instead of 15 times. So take advantage of those cell styles. They are super easy to use. You can use your own features if you want. It's a great option. But also you have a lot of other formatting choices. If you look at between the font group, the alignment group, the number group, the styles group, those are going to give you the most common formatting options. But if I have a date and I want the date to look different, so I'm going to select all these dates. And by the way, I typed it in as 1/24/24, and it actually gave me a 4-year. It actually gave me a 4-year by default. But if I don't want that, I want it to say the day of the week and the full date, I could actually go to the number group, click on the drop-down arrow where it says date, and it's going to give me my most common formatting. So if I want it to be long date, I click on it and it's automatically going to change it. So a lot of things are built in, super easy to use. Take advantage of that drop down. It's going to give you the most common. Excuse me. But kind of back to a formula for a minute. In Excel, we have over 400 functions, like I mentioned. Sum is the most common. The second most common is actually an average. So if I want to create an average of all of the quarter 1 through quarter 4 numbers, I could do that by going to the cell where I want the answer. I could do an equal to start my formula. If I type the letter A, it will bring up a list of all the functions that begin with an A. But if I type AV, it's going to show me all the functions that begin with those 2 letters. Sorry. If I double click on the word average, it will start my formula for me. It will complete the word average. And anytime you're using a function, you will always need to have equal the name of the function, and then a set of parens, left and right. Inside the parens is going to be what is referred to as your arguments. In this case, I want to get an average out of a range of cells. So I'm going to select the range, C5 through F8. Then I'm going to control enter, and it's automatically going to give me the answer to that formula and put, for some reason, it didn't add my right paren. I can't see it, but it's actually there, but it's going to excuse me, it's going to automatically create that formula for me. So just so you realize, there are some very common functions. Some will be your number one, average is your number two. But what if I wanted to replace this total row in row 9 with an average instead? Instead of all of these being a sum, I want these to be an average. Did you know that you can actually select cells that have information on them, and you're going to get an icon at the bottom right? It's actually called the quick analysis. If you click on that icon for quick analysis, Excel assumes there's certain things you want to do when you select that range. One of them is formatting, where we could get data bars, color scales, icon sets, etc. Or I could create a chart. I could create formulas by going to the totals. I could create a table, or I could even create spark lines. I'm going to go back to totals. I don't have to do my own formulas. The computer can do it for me by selecting the range of cells and choosing which of the most common functions I want it to use. So if I hesitate on average, instead of having the sum in row 9, it can change it to being an average formula instead. So I'm going to click average. So now, and it's telling me there's already data there. Do I want to replace it? I'm going to say yes. So you can see that we can have the computer automatically create common formulas for us by using that quick analysis. So it's a pretty great little tool. But one more shortcut that I want to show you here today. I'm going to go to the dates worksheet, and I have some information here related to the employees of the Outlander Spices Company. I have their first name, last name, data hire, department, etc. But I want you to look at the office location column. I'm going to have the computer extract information from column F and place it in columns G and H. As a matter of fact, in column G for this extension, I wanted to grab the last 4 numbers from column F. And I'm going to have the computer do all of these employees at one time by giving it the first one. So I give it the pattern of what I want it to do. So I'm going to type in 2099. I'm going to control enter because that's the extension for the first employee. Then I'm going to go to my data tab of the ribbon. And in my data tools group on the right-hand side, I'm going to click on this icon called Flash Fill. When I do that, it recognizes my pattern and it's going to fill in all of the extensions for each of the employees all the way down the list. It just follows my pattern. I can do the same with the building. So if I go to H4 and I want it to say lab, central, HQ, etc., I give it the first one. So I'm going to type lab, LAB. I'm going to control enter. I'm going to click on flash fill. It follows my pattern and fills them all in. If this is a feature you have not used, this to me is one of my favorite features that came out within the past few years. I use it all the time. We can use it to extract information from different cells, either to the left or to the right, that are based on the same row. But we can also use it to combine information together. In column I wanted to take columns A and B and combine them together. I actually wanted to say first name space last name. And if you look at A and B, those are uppercase. I don't want them to be uppercase. I want them to be proper casing. As if I type it in exactly the way that I want it, I'm going to press enter this time just to show you you can use this feature another way. So I'm going to type in Erica space Decker. I'm going to press enter and I put it in the formatting I want it. I can automatically have it do all of the names for me by giving it the first letter of the next person. So if I type an A for Angela, it says, hey, wait a second, I see a pattern. Is this what you want to do, is fill these all in? I just press enter and it fills them all in. So this feature called Flash Fill, which is actually in your handout on the last page, page 11, is a way that we can extract information from a cell or combine information, and it even will change the casing of anything that you put in if you give it the right pattern. So it's all related to, sorry, how you type things in. And that was the last topic I wanted to show you here today. There is so much to this program. Hopefully we'll have another session to kind of take you beyond these basics. Then we can also get into some more advanced features with Excel. We just want to start having the computer do the work instead of us working so hard. But let's jump back and see if there were any questions from the audience. Did anybody have any questions right now? Jason, did anything come through?
There were just a couple initial questions that were more administrative than anything, so there weren't
Okay.
any that we took care of, so.
Well, let's give it a second here and see if anybody has any while they
Okay.
take a look at your upcoming sessions.
All right, it looks like Tristan has a question. I think he'd like to answer, ask the question, I think, live, so.
Sure. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. Tristan, are you there?
Tristan,
Apologies, did not realize I was still muted.
Oh, that's okay.
If we have a filtered column, is there a quick way to auto sum just the visual data? Let's say that we filtered
Good question.
by warehouse location and we need to know, I don't know, payroll total for one location. The issue I keep running into is I can auto sum, but every bit of information, whether it's hidden or not, is included in that auto sum. And
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way around that. It would just be
Yes,
helpful to
there
know
is.
what that was.
Yes, there is. So I just filtered by Canada, by country, just so you could see when I filter, if I had a sum, it's going to, well, let me actually create those first. Sorry about that. So if I have a sum of those extended prices, so if I just do my sum and I say I want to add together all of my extended prices, it's going to automatically give me the sum of everything. If I filter and I say I only want to see Argentina, that sum stays the same all the time. So I think what you were asking is, I want to just get a sum of the records I'm actually seeing. So you can do that by doing a subtotal. So if I do equal subtotal, it has a hidden code behind the computer that we give it a number to say what function we want it to do. So in this case, I want to do a sum. So I would double click on the number 9-sum. Then I'm going to put in a comma and tell it what are the cells that I want to get a sum of. So I'm going to select that same range. And then I'm going to control enter again. And right now I have the same exact answer. But if I go back and filter again by country, I'm not going to have the same answer because the sum is going to stay the same, but the subtotal is only going to give me the subtotal for my current records.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. So use the subtotal. Great feature.
Jolene, it looks like we have a couple other questions that came in as well.
Yes.
Caitlin would like to know if there's a shortcut for auto sum.
The shortest shortcut that I am aware of, and as a matter of fact, let me just go down to the bottom of this. If I'm down at the bottom of this list and I want to create a sum for everything in this column, click on the cell. If everything in the rows above you is what you want to add together, clicking on the auto sum is going to be your easiest way to do that. It will then, of course, look up or look to the left and assume those are what you want to add together. Then I can just press enter and it's done. That's your quickest way, really. Or let me give you one more there. Sorry about that. If I want to add all these together and I'm on the cell where I want the answers to appear and I don't have any blank rows above me, I can simply click that auto sum. But if I wanted the answer to be way over here and not just below that column or that row, I could still use the auto sum. It says, I don't see anything above me. I see things to the left. That's not what I wanted. I could just replace it with what I wanted it to add together. So if I wanted to add together K2 through K1465, I could have it automatically change that. I hope that helped.
We also had somebody ask if there was a shortcut to transfer info from Google Sheets into Excel.
Did you know that you can do that automatically? So wherever your Google file is saved at, if you want to make a copy of it or download it, you can then put it into your, OneDrive or wherever you're going to be saving it to, and you can open that directly in Excel. Just to show you, if I go to the file menu and do a save a copy, because I'm online version or saving it to a cloud. If I go to my file types, way down here at the bottom is this open document spreadsheet where this is compatible backwards with Google. So I could take this file and open it directly within Google. So they do work together. Or your other option would be to copy the information from Google, paste it in Excel, but not everything's going to come over perfectly. Okay. But you should be able to open that file. I don't have any Google files. I'm not a big Google user, but because I'm a Microsoft Master Instructor, I'm not supposed to use that G word, but it is easy to just open that Google file. Okay, hope that helped. Any other questions?
We have two more questions that came through.
Yes.
One is, with filtered columns, are you able to move conditional formatting with cells as whether or not the row above contains a Boolean variable?
So with conditional formatting and you have filtered data, can it automatically look at whatever cell is above it when it's filtered?
Yes.
I have to say, I've never tried that. Could you? Ooh, I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. I know that the formulas within conditional formatting wouldn't allow you, but I don't know if code would. You know where I would go to ask that question? ChatGPT. Seriously, that's where I would go to ask that question. If there's code that could do it. Because with just the conditional formatting and the formulas that we have, I know that can't do it. Not with filtered data. You could extract that data though. That would be an option. Because when you filter your data, you have advanced filtering capabilities, or of course, if it's in a pivot table, it's different. But if you have that data in an advanced filter and you say, I want the results of it to go to these different cells, those cells can actually have the conditional formatting on it. So that might be an option. Then you could do that. Something to think about.
Jolynn, it looks like we have two more questions. Do we have time to answer those?
Sure,
or?
go for it.
Okay, perfect. One is there a way to maintain formulas when copying from Excel web to a desktop sheet?
To maintain the formula?
Yes.
So if I open up a file that is in Excel Online and I want to copy it and put it into a desktop version of Excel, is that the question?
It sounds like it. It sounds like she wants to know if you can, yes, with multiple sheets in the same call. Oh, sorry, I skipped a different one. Is there a way to maintain formulas when copying from the web to the desktop?
It depends on how you paste it. And the key to that was the word copy. Because when you copy something, it can automatically bring in whatever you tell it to. Let me show you an example. So if I select these cells and I copy them, If I go over here and I want to paste them, I get several different paste choices. So when you copy it from Excel Online, which by the way, you can just open it in the desktop version as well if you have that license to be able to use both. But anyway, because you could go to that top right and go to edit and open it in desktop. But when you go to all these different paste icons, I could say I just want to paste the values, which is not going to bring over the formulas, but a regular paste would bring over the formulas along with the data and some of the formatting, not all of it. So if I just say paste the values or whatever, oops, sorry, kind of lost what I was doing there. Sorry, my mouse moved. If I just say I want to paste the raw data, I don't want the formulas to come with it, just the data. I could still go back to the home tab, go to the drop down for paste, and I still have a whole bunch of other paste options that I can be using. So yes, you could bring the formulas over. You shouldn't have any issues. I've done that before and I've never had a problem with copying a formula from online to desktop. Okay.
Perfect. We will take just one more question. It
Okay.
says, if you have multiple sheets with the same column headings, can you delete certain columns in all sheets at the same time?
Ah, yes, you can. As a matter of fact, let me show you that. I'm going to go to my January worksheet. So I have these worksheets called January, February, and March. They basically are set up the same. And I want to manage all three of those at the same time. Whether I'm going to create a formula on the same cell, I want to format them, I want to insert, delete, whatever. If I click on January, hold my shift key down, click the click the March worksheet, it selects all three of those. It's called grouping. Once they are grouped together, whatever I do is going to do it to every sheet. So if I go to a cell and I type information, I format it, whatever the case would be. If I delete somebody, delete a row, delete a column, whatever, it's doing it to all those sheets at once. I'm going to right click on my sheet tabs. I'm going to ungroup. Sorry. Now they're all individual. That middle person is gone. And whatever I did on C1 is on every sheet. So group your sheets together. Then whatever you do, it will do it to all of them. But don't forget to ungroup when you're done. Okay.
I think that's all we have time for. So Jolynn,
All
if you
right.
want to wrap it up, and Jason, I think we're good to go ahead and do so.
Sounds great. So I just wanted to show the future webinars that are coming up as well. Good governance for Microsoft Teams and SharePoint on March 27th. We also have Where is My Files, which is going to be talking about your cloud storage on May 29th. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, thanks
Jason.
everybody. I appreciate that, Jolene. That was wonderful. Definitely learned a lot of good stuff, and I'm sure there's also things I've forgotten that you reminded me of. So that was great intro class. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, as everyone knows, if you need anything from us at the IT company, our number's right here. You can give us a call and we'll help you out. Of course, you can always email gethelp@theitco.net as well. That's our support number if you ever need help with anything. So everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you.